Welcome back to the still terribly named OK Not OK podcast. I am the SportsZu, and today we are ranking all of the pay-per-view gimmick matches in the WWE since the year 2000. So what exactly does that mean for our purposes? Well, as far as I can tell, there have been 10 different match types that have been graced with the name of a pay-per-view or now premium live event over at least the last 24 years since the year 2000. So, for example, Survivor Series is our final PLE of the year, and so a Survivor Series match is indeed one of those gimmick matches. And even more specifically, Survivor Series War Games is a second type of gimmick match, so those will be 2 of the 10 matches on our list. So for today, we will start counting up instead of counting down from the best type of match to the worst. But we're gonna have to break this one up into 2 different videos. So our favorite matches will be this week, but our least favorite matches will be next week. So with that, why don't we just get it started with the number 1 best match type in the WWE, and for me this is a no-brainer. It is the Royal Rumble. Now the Royal Rumble is a WWE institution starting in 1988, so we have had 37 Royal Rumble events, and the first winner was the Hacksaw Jim Duggan all the way back in 1988, and of course it continues through today with Cody Rhodes picking up his back-to-back Royal Rumble wins on the men's side, and then Bayley getting a win on the women's side. So of course everyone knows the Royal Rumble rules. There are generally 30 entrants, 2 people start in the ring, and then at a given amount of time, which seems to change from every now and then, sometimes it's 60 seconds, sometimes it's 90 seconds, sometimes it's just whenever they decide to throw somebody else out there, the clock runs down from 10 to 1, the buzzer hits, and music plays. Everyone loves to see who the surprise next entrant is, and of course, to be eliminated, you have to go over top of the top rope and have both feet hit the floor. So no doubt this is just absolutely the best event of the year, and it has the biggest prize with a guaranteed spot in a title match at WrestleMania, and usually the main event of one of the nights of WrestleMania. I just love watching the Royal Rumble. Easy to watch over and over, and it's great having 2 Royal Rumble matches in one night, and in fact it would be better if we had even more Royal Rumble matches throughout the year because they're just so amazing. We don't need to keep it exclusive to one night. And we even had the greatest Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia a few years ago, which was kind of close in time to the actual Royal Rumble, so maybe spread it out a little bit more, but still the Royal Rumble is absolutely the best match and deserves to be at number 1. So let's drop down to number 2, still an incredible match. This is our Money in the Bank ladder match, and the very first Money in the Bank ladder match started in 2005 at WrestleMania 21, where Edge was the first ever person to grab the Money in the Bank briefcase. But the first official Money in the Bank pay-per-view started in 2010, and it has been an institution ever since. So we've had 15 Money in the Bank PLEs, with the most recent winners being Drew McIntyre, who immediately cashed in and lost due to CM Punk's interference, and Tiffany Stratton, who is still waiting for Tiffy time to begin as she is still holding that very pink Money in the Bank briefcase. So this is a simple match. There are usually between 6 to 8 contestants, but it can go up to 10. We've seen that many, we've seen as few as 5, and you just have to simply climb the ladder and grab the briefcase to win the match, and then once you do, that briefcase has a contract inside it, which is good for a championship match at any time for an entire year. So as you can imagine, in a ladder match, ladders are flying all over the place, bodies are falling to the mat. It's just absolute insanity. It's crazy. What a big time match with a big prize to hopefully become a WWE champion for the very first time. And so it's really great to see when we get a new winner on their way to becoming an even bigger superstar. So this certainly has deserved to become a 5th in a Big 5 pay-per-view. And we go from a ladder at number 2 to the cell at number 3. Woo! Just an incredible match here. The very first cell match was back in 1997 at Bad Blood. So we just saw that reprise here with CM Punk and Drew McIntyre at this year's version of Bad Blood, and it lived up to the billing as those two were a bloody mess at the end of the match. Now, of course, the cell matches are some of the all-time greatest matches in WWE history, and who can ever forget Mankind getting thrown off the top of the cage by The Undertaker and almost killing himself when he took that landing through the announce table. And the first cell match was won by Shawn Michaels over the aforementioned Undertaker, but it did not become an official PLE until 2009. But the last one was in 2022, with the new regime seemingly want to save these matches for the perfect time when a feud becomes so big that it just cannot be finished appropriately any other way other than seeing two competitors completely kill each other inside the cell, as we have a humongous steel structure surrounding the ring with a little bit of room to also operate on the floor, and you can grab any weapon that you want that just might be laying around underneath the ring. And we've seen so many toys be used throughout the years, with so many men and women leaving as a complete bloody mess, such that, as they say, they are never the same yet again. Now, normally we would also say that these are no disqualification matches where anything goes until we finally get a winner. And then, of course, we remember 2019 when WWE somehow called for the bell before there was ever a pin between Seth Rollins and The Fiend, after Rollins used a sledgehammer on The Fiend through many layers, including a ladder and a toolbox. But we don't like to think about that match too often, and would instead have to have Dr. OK go back and rewatch the entire match, and so we could see just how many times Rollins had to destroy The Fiend before he could finally keep The Fiend on the mat. So if you haven't yet checked out that video, I guess I'll recommend you to go back and see it, but maybe you just don't want to see that one ever again. But nonetheless, this is still a great match, perfectly used at the right time to end those big time feuds, and they don't even need a championship belt to be involved to have an amazing match. And at number 4, it's a similar structure, the Elimination Chamber. Its first match was at 2002's Survivor Series, with Shawn Michaels again being the inaugural winner, this time defeating Triple H, who was the champion, and 4 other competitors at the time. And it got its first standalone pay-per-view in 2010, and it has 14 events, with WWE skipping 2014 for some reason. But now that it is placed appropriately between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, it makes it have just humongous stakes every single year, when either a title is up for grabs in the match itself, or they become the #1 contender for a match at WrestleMania. So certainly this is where big stakes are made every single year. And most notably, this year, after failing several times, Becky Lynch finally got her shot at Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania from winning the Elimination Chamber. But what is the Elimination Chamber? As we said, it is a steel structure much like the cell, and it's got 4 pods, 1 in each corner, that houses 1 competitor, where we usually have 6 competitors in the match, but it can be even more if you want to start with more than 2 people in the middle of the ring, but usually it is just 6, with 4 of the competitors being in each of the pods. So every 5 minutes, 1 competitor is released for the pod until all 4 pods have been opened, and then the last person standing wins the match. So just like the cell or a steel cage, the competitors can use the chamber itself as its own weapon, which we have seen many times, and we've seen many competitors jump off the top of the pods onto their competitors, or even hang off the top of the chamber and fall onto their opponents. So this is just another great match, which is truly enhanced by the fact that it has such huge stakes. But of course, the only downside is, yet again, just like you would get in a cage match, you would have a little bit of visibility problem having to look through the chamber walls. So let's go to number 5, where we switch back from the cages back to the ladders with a TLC, or tables, ladders, and chairs match. The first TLC match was at SummerSlam 2002 with 3 legendary tag teams, with Edge and Christian defeating both the Dudley Boys and the Hardy Boys, and I'd have to say that we were all winners for that and their subsequent matches, as these are all true classics of wrestling and just amazing tag team efforts all around. Now, TLC got its first official pay-per-view in 2009, and it was ended in 2020, so it had 12 events of its own. Now, a TLC match very similar to any other ladder match, but technically you can use tables, ladders, or chairs as weapons, which is kind of actually restricting, because pretty much in any ladder match you can use whatever you want, but that's just really beside the point. So again, just like any ladder match or the Money in the Bank ladder match, usually you win this match by climbing to the top of the ladder to retrieve whatever it is that you're trying to win, which is usually a championship. So unfortunately, when there's not a championship involved, a lot of times we've seen these matches end with a pin or submission in the middle of the ring. Not nearly as good when you have that. It just kind of seems to ruin the point. But with the TLC matches, as the final PLE of the year, it really was a nice way to end the calendar year and then look forward onto the Royal Rumble in the subsequent year. So usually we had one match with just tables, one match with just ladders, one match with just chairs, and then that year we also had one match with stairs. But of course, the premier match was the TLC match itself. And we're gonna have to give an asterisk to this one. As we said, sometimes these matches end with a pin or submission. Those are obviously just not as good because they're kind of limiting Extreme Rules matches at that point with the limit to tables, ladders, and chairs, so they would have to drop down a few notches after we talk about some of the other match types. Okay, up 6, let's keep it rolling. It's the King and Queen of the Ring. Now we have to be a little bit specific about this one because the match itself, there's nothing special going on. It's just a standard match with one fall. But we have to say that this is really the King and Queen of the Ring tournaments themselves. So the first King of the Ring tournament was back in 1985 with Don Morocco beating the Iron Sheik, and amazingly enough, it was just a non-televised house show. Wow, what a weird way to start the King of the Ring tournaments. But how would you like to see that, where you went to a house show and you got to see an entire tournament in one night with 16 competitors in it, and then on top of that, as soon as the tournament was over, you got one more match, a Hulk Hogan title match. Now that is one great house show right there. But it became a pay-per-view in 1993, and unlike the other ones, it's just kind of used sporadically over time, which I don't know. To me, that kind of takes it down a few pegs because it's not important enough for them to hold every single year. But maybe at the same time, it makes it more special because you save it for the right time. But then again, we most recently just had King and Queen of the Ring in Saudi Arabia in May of 2024, with Gunther becoming the King of the Ring and Nia Jax becoming the Queen of the Ring. And both of them were granted title shots for winning those tournaments, and both of them did indeed win their titles at SummerSlam. So with the sporadic nature of this event, even though they started back in 1993, there have only been 12 King of the Ring and now King and Queen of the Ring PLEs. So what is the King and Queen of the Ring? It is a bracketed single elimination tournament that can have any number of competitors. We've seen so many years with preliminary matches on, let's say, Raw or SmackDown. And then you finally get to the PLE with just either the championship, like we got this year, which is a bummer, or some years with the semifinals and finals, or sometimes even a little more, which are the really good ones, quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, all in one night. Those are the true classics that we like to see. We even saw that as recently as the year 2000 with all 8 of those matches, which was our first year that we could start counting. So that's what truly makes it special. These competitors have to win several matches in one night in order to become the king or queen of the ring. So again, just like the TLC matches, when we have an event like this year's 2024 event where we only had the finals at the PLE, it would have to get knocked down the list a little bit. But when we get those awesome PLEs with multiple rounds and these competitors have to show how deserving they really are, those are the ones that really have some staying power. And as the King of the Ring was initially used to show an up-and-coming superstar becoming raised up to the top of the game, such as Stone Cold Steve Austin or Triple H, well, that just made it seem so much more important that becoming the king or the queen was really something special. So let's go to our last one for today at number 7. It is the Extreme Rules match. Now, what was the first Extreme Rules match? Who knows? That goes all the way back to the beginning with any type of hardcore match, so we're not really even going to try to figure that one out. However, the first pay-per-view with Extreme Rules, well, it was officially in 2009, but it started coming out of ECW. After that was extinguished, we had One Night Stand beginning in 2005, where every match in the night, just like at ECW every single night, was under certain hardcore rules. With, again, the last event in 2022, so it had 14 events. Now, strangely enough, out of those 14 events, only 11 of those PLEs actually had a match that was called Extreme Rules. And 9 of those 11 Extreme Rules matches were for championships, so you don't even get that every single time. The point is just to have these stipulation matches that are more extreme than just a regular match. But when they had the official Extreme Rules moniker, you knew that was the main match you had to watch that night. But since we see all sorts of no DQ matches with various stipulations throughout the year, well, Extreme Rules is just a little bit lower on the list as something exciting. It was just the fact that every single match on that particular PLE was some sort of crazy stipulation. So the Extreme Rules match itself, not really the most exciting. But that is where we will stop today, as we've got 3 more match types to talk about next week. And funny enough, I brought up Survivor Series at the beginning, and we've not heard of either of those matches yet as we counted from 1 to 7. So it sounds like those 2 matches are going to be 2 of the 3 worst types of matches that we're talking about. So yeah, I guess that means that we wanted to have a countdown so that we could mostly dunk on Survivor Series, both the traditional tag matches and now especially with War Games. So stand back and watch out for that one. But until then, make sure to go back and check out the doc this week when he talked about the 5th members for the men's War Games teams, as well as whether the women's United States Championships are okay or not okay. But for now, I'm the SportsZu, and this has been the Okay, Not Okay podcast.